Hey everybody, Mike from Big Mike's Motor Pool here. And today I got a special project for you. But let me introduce my newest assistant, Miss Charlie. She's joining us today here in the shop. And the project we're working on is how to repair the shutterstat in your M939 series 5-ton, which for a lot of folks is starting to be a problem. These are going bad, and they're very expensive nowadays, and soon there's not going to be any left, to be honest with you. If you're not sure what the shutterstat is, here it is. This little thing, right now, prices, if you shop around, you may find something a little bit cheaper, but these are going for almost $400 now. When I tell you there's not going to be any left, I can find almost anything for a military truck. If it exists somewhere in the world, if it's on the moon and it's listed for sale, I will find it. And these, I only know one place that has a few left, maybe 10 or 12 last time I looked. And you don't want to purchase from those folks. They are probably real nice people, but they're always astronomically expensive. It's an aircraft company, and anything with the word airplane attached to it is very expensive. There's a few vendors out there, like I mentioned, I've seen them for around $400, but I don't know how many they have left, and I don't believe you can buy you can buy this from the one manufacturer. I think Comfort Air is the company that made these through, they own Evans Tempcon, if I remember right. I may be wrong there, but you can get them there, but again, highly expensive. But what we're going to do is disassemble this guy, because I figured a brand new one would have fresh O-rings in it, and we can see everything as it's supposed to be instead of broken from being used. And we're going to re-ring this so that it seals and doesn't, shoot air out the back of it or leak or whatever they do to you when they go bad. So I'm going to get started on this, and let's take a look and see what we got. All right, so here's what we have. We have the unit removed from the truck, and inside of here is a bunch of O-rings, 5 of them to be exact, which you can see here. You don't do anything with this, so do not touch this nut or put pliers on this or anything. This stays put. I don't know what's all in here, but this is never the problem. This is just a thermal sensor, I guess, if you will. But that isn't really what goes bad. What goes bad is inside. Now, you'll see here, I have a pick set. I have a little bit of silicone-based lubricant. This is just some stuff I found in the shop here. I have stuff that I like to use for O-rings. It's Super Lube, and it's 4 O-rings. It's silicone-based, but as luck would have it, I know where nothing is around here anymore, and it's just somewhere not where I know where it's at. So we're using the old silicone here. So like I said, we got the picks. You don't need all these, but I just put the whole pick set out. You can usually find these cheap online, Harbor Freight, whatever. As long as you got some angled guys and some straight ones to get in where you got to go, you're good. You can do the opening of this one of 2 ways. Now I got this spanner wrench. This is the cheapest thing I found online, and it's totally worthless. It's just garbage. We're just going to throw this freaking thing out. So it got in the holes and it fit, but it wasn't tight. So when you go to move it, you got to be real careful with it. But that isn't the problem. The problem was the stupid wrench, the pin started to bend, and I didn't want to go and just destroy this. I mean, right there I marred it up a little bit, but it was already marred up in the holes to begin with. I believe these were assembled with some sort of machine at the factory, so it was a little bit tighter than that. But you can see I got some marks on here on this side and on this side. So what I ended up doing, which any of you guys can do too, I use these channel lock slip joint pliers to get this cracked open. I had this in the vise and just held it real tight and gave it a little spin, and came right apart. I would say not to tighten this extremely tight in your vise. I don't know if you can damage this body. I don't know how thick the brass is. It looks like it's pretty sturdy, but the less pressure you have, the better. I mean, you can get it snug, but don't go cranking on it. No reason to hit the vise with a hammer or a pipe or whatever you do. So you can also use a pipe wrench instead of the pliers if you have to. So to open this up, obviously you crack it loose, and this one I already did. I just put it all back together loose so everyone can see what we got going on. Save some time here. You unscrew the cap. Now there is a spring in here. It's not super high tension, but just push down while you open it so you don't have parts go flying. All right, the first thing you'll notice is the spring. And you got this little pointed shaft with an O-ring in the end of it. So that's one piece. Before I get any further into this, I will say when you do this job, be sure to blow out this hole. This is the through hole. That's where your air is leaking, if it is leaking, but just blow it out with some compressed air if you can. Just in case anything got in there, dust, grime, dirt, bugs, whatever. So this next piece here, it may come out, it may not. You may have to fight with it a little bit. Let's see if we can just tap it on the bench a little bit. No, it's going to fight me. So you can get in there with some pick action, work this guy up a little bit, and then you can just pop it right out, nice and easy. Now this piece, there's nothing to it. It's got a little, what I believe is for air to escape, a little channel in it, and it's just a hole in I guess it's some kind of piston, if you will. So we'll put these all in order as they come out so you can see what's going on. So there's that. The next piece you can see in there, you're going to need a pick for this one for sure. On this piece, there's an O-ring in that first round cylindrical section you see. It's on the outside, which was inside of this. And there's two more O-rings on a shaft that you're going to have fighting you with resistance and whatnot. I found this pick here is pretty good with this head design because you can get inside and underneath of it and pull it up. So let's see if we can do that. Trying to do it without looking. All right, that was pretty easy. All right, so now we got this part. And there's some special stuff to know about this one. So now, there's nothing left in there that you have to worry about. Body is completely disassembled as far as you need to go to replace the O-rings that are causing your leaks. So we'll put this to the side, and we'll start taking O-rings off. And the first one I do is, just because it's in the line, we'll do this one. Get in here and work this O-ring up a little bit. It can be a little tricky because it's so small, so just be patient. If you're got fat fingers like myself, I pray for you. So that one's done. Take that off, and then we're going to put a little bit of silicone on it. Now this one, you probably just dab the thing on like that, just a little bit. And then you use one of the two small O-rings. And you just smear the silicone around the top of it. Some folks may not use the silicone, but for assembly purposes and seating, it's probably a very good idea to have some sort of lubricant on it. But you want to make sure you use the lubricant. If you don't use the silicone, use something that's not going to eat these O-rings. Now, you see on here, we got 1, 2, 3 O-rings. I just changed one, but why do I have 5? All right. Problem with why you got 5 is there's one in here. And you're not going to see it on this video. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the video right now. I'm going to put a picture up so you can see the O-ring. It's not the greatest picture, but I got a close-up of one with a regular camera shining the light in there, and you can see that there is an O-ring in there, so you'll know what you're looking at when you go to mess with it. All right, so now that we have all seen what's inside the chasm here on this particular piece, I do need to mention that I forgot one tool to let you guys know about. You're going to need these forceps, tweezers, call them what you will, but not just any pair. I don't know if you can see it here in the video, but this pair has serrated, knurled, whatever you want to call it, surface to it. I did try this once with a pair that did not have that, and after about 2 tries I gave up and went and got those because the O-ring slips off and it's just not fun. So now we're going to try to get this out. I'm no expert at this. This may take some time, so I may speed this up, but I'm just shoving this pick in here and trying to poke it and dislodge it from its groove. and we're going to work it out of here. And don't worry about wrecking the O-ring because it's the old one and you're going to put a new one in. So do what you got to do at this point. I got this one out of the groove a little bit. And let's see if we can pop it up and out. Now the nice thing about this is you can shove it through the bottom if you have to, but see, I just broke this O-ring. But see, I was messing with this O-ring already once. I took this apart and put it back together already once, and it was probably damaged to begin with. Don't be alarmed at this and think that the only way this works is if this piece comes out. This piece, you can see there's some little press marks in it where this was put on after this was made. Now the reason that's there was not because of O-ring installation. The factory may have installed the O-ring that way, but there's no way to machine inside of here, the O-ring groove. So they machined the outside diameter and got where it had to be to fit the little O-ring, and then this was pushed back on, and then they smashed the side down in 4 points just to hold this in place. So now let's go about getting the other one back in there. Now I'm not going to lube the O-ring on this because it's going to be a little easier to manage, but I will shoot some of this stuff into the hole just a little bit, some of the silicone there. I'll take this pick and just try and wiggle it around, try to work it into the groove just to get something in there for seating purposes. You don't want to overdo this either, just a little bit, because I don't really know for sure if too much of this would clog this thing up and make it not want to work right. But so get a little bit in there, and then we'll put a little bit on this pick and just rub the center of it once we put the new O-ring in. So now for the new O-ring. Hard to see in my hands, but what I'm going to do is take it, get it in there, squish it down nice and straight like that. Now I got a little bit too much of a bite on this. I'm going to move it back some. You want to get it about halfway because you want to insert this into the hole. All right, get it started in there. Now you're going to try to work it in place. You want to start by trying to work the first side of the O-ring that's in the hole into the groove, and see it just popped out. And this is going to be a problem that you're going to encounter. It's getting this thing in there and fighting with it. So don't get frustrated. It's just part of the game. Now what I'm going to do here, all right, since this is going to take me a few tries, probably going to cut the video. I want to do this until I get it in, and I'll show you the actual way I got it in when I get it in. Let's see if putting it in through the bottom is any easier. All right, so it's inside the hole. I'm going to take the straight pick and push it up some. Hope here is to get this to just fall into the groove slightly when it gets close. So that's up there now. I'm going to try to push the top into the groove. Just work it around. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get a different tool. So I have a 1/8 inch drill bit. We're going to use this to try and push this O-ring into place. I'm using the square end of it through the bottom. Remember, our O-ring's already inside, and we have, can't see it, but it's a little bit in the groove. So now I got that starting to come up. You don't want to just push it, you have to work it over as it comes up. You just want to try not to poke the O-ring, you want to just work it into its groove sideways. And that's it. Just make sure she's seated in there real nice. And it's in. So that was the easiest way to do it. Pinch it closed, push it in the bottom, push it up with the drill bit, and then start it once you get it up close to the top with the pick, and then just work around it while you're putting a light little pressure on the bottom of this drill bit. This literally is the hardest part of this whole job. Like, if you can do that, the rest of this is just cake. Because all we're doing now is changing some O-rings. Now, when I just did that there, I had some excess silicone hanging off of this here pick, so I just smeared it around. That should be good enough. So now we're going to move on to the other two small O-rings, or the medium-sized O-rings, I should say. These are pretty self-explanatory. Just take them off, put them back on. This inner one might fight you a little bit, just because it's not as easy to get off due to the way the grooves are. You know, the first one, you didn't have a whole bunch of material on top of it. It was just right there where it's at. So that one's off. Dab some silicone in here. I'm just going to smear it around somewhat with this pick. You can hear Miss Charlie over there snoring away, a little cha-cha. All right, so now we'll start with the first O-ring. And this, you can do this whatever you prefer. If you want to put this one on and leave it there and then work the other one over top of this one, you can. That's probably what I'm going to do here, unless for some reason the O-ring doesn't want to stretch over. But I figure that the less you touch the O-rings with a pick, the better off the O-rings are. You don't want to have the chance of ripping one or tearing one. All right, so those are done. I smeared a little bit of the silicone around. Now I'll do the last O-ring. Again, this is nice and simple. Just get in there and pop it with the pick. A little bit of goop. Just spread this out. It's like we did the other ones. And with the excess, you're going to have to squeeze out of here when you put the O-ring on, just like I did in the previous 2-3 O-rings here. You can just smear it around with your finger and you should be lubed up enough for operational purposes. All right. So that's that. Let's move some tools and junk out of the way here. See about putting this guy back together. And we should be all done with our picks and stuff. And really the only thing you got to do is put this all together by hand and then tighten her down. So first step, you know, get in here and clean this out if you can. Yeah, I don't know what it would look like in a used one, but maybe blow it out. Maybe shoot it with some kind of cleaners, whatever. But for this instance, I'm just going to blow it out here. Not with a machine or anything, just because I don't think there's anything in here, but I've never used this thing, so it's not like there's a ton of stuff in it. And you're going to just put this back in. The two smaller, well, I should say medium-sized O-rings are going to go down into this. And you can see that there's a little shaft tube, if you will. They go right over top of that. And just push it all the way in. Be a little tight because you got new O-rings. Really tight. So as this is a little tight to put in because of the new O-rings, we're going to take it out real quick so I can take a look at something here before I do something stupid. And the whole, I mean, it doesn't have a humongous chamfer on it. So as I was just saying, I was interrupted, had to cut the video for a second. But anyway, as I was saying, the hole in here doesn't have very much of a chamfer to it to start the O-rings, but it does have a little bit. And with our O-rings a little greased up, it should be okay to do what I'm about to do. So we're going to put it back in. And what I have here is a small socket, 9/16. It fits pretty nice. You could use something smaller if you want, but if you do, just don't let the socket hit this internal ring. You don't want to disturb that because it may not sit right if you were to put any pressure on that. and you can use the socket. You do this in your vise if you want, if it's easier for you, but whatever you do, don't put this on the table and beat on it, because you could damage that. So if you're going to hold this, you can do it like I'm going to do it in one hand. Just center up your socket a little bit, give it a few taps. Let's see, I didn't do it yet. I think we got it that time. I got past the first one. Now we got to get past the second one. All right. Let's do it like this. A little bit better surface area. I think that's it. It is. All right. So we got that guy in. All right. It's all set. Now, next part is going to be this here piston. And just for the heck of it, since I was touching the O-rings and everything, I'll put a little bit more silicone in here just to help lubricate it in case I knocked any off. And this one you can see right there is a little bit of a chamfer. So we likely will have to go and tap this one in as well. And you can see this one from a long time of sitting, it's got a black mark inside of it. So don't be alarmed at that. That's just probably something leaching off the O-ring. But now when you do this, you want to just look in here, make sure that your O-ring is still in place. And it looks like mine has fallen off or become dislodged. So I'm going to stop this and we're going to fix this problem real quick. I don't know why it got dislodged, but we're going to find out. All right, so I don't believe it was dislodged. It was a little bit off to one side. So I sort of centered it back up inside there. So it goes on and starts pretty easy with this. It is still going to be a little bit of a job to get that on there. But that's the thing. You want to just get this thing in there so it starts straight. So what I'm going to do too is, in order to just, I'm going to wiggle this around a little bit back and forth. I got the pick inside the little, you can see it, there's a little air hole there. Just put a little bit of finger pressure on it, and I'm just moving it back and forth. What I'm trying to do, I don't know if it's doing anything right, I'm just trying to get that O-ring started on this, you know, and lined up more than anything. So now we're going to do our same trick with the hammer. Let's see if we can get this to go on. It's wanting to fight me. You know, new O-rings, very tight. So what I do want to do is get a smaller socket. So I shall be right back. So what I got is a 7/16 socket. We're going to put this thing back inside the piston. Make sure our O-ring's looking nice. Okay. And I went and got from my stores of stuff here, half-inch setup. It's half-inch MPT. I did this so that I could put this thing on the table and tap it with a hammer. Now, you don't have to go crazy tightening this. Just screw this one on to the shutterstat until it gets snug and tight. I did it by hand and it should be enough. Just want to make sure that there is no chance that you're going to have threads moving up and down, because you don't want to damage them with the force. So we're going to put that on top. We're going to give it a few whacks. So I was, you know, tapping this in with the hammer, and of course the camera cut out. I don't know why. I'm doing this with a cell phone and it happens. It just stops when it wants to. But anyway, I got this in here. We're supported, and we, you know, a few whacks with the hammer and it went in. It did fight a little bit, but it wasn't anything crazy. I just kept whacking until it went down. So anyway, now that we got that in, we're done with any kind of force that's going to happen on the end here. So the next step in this is going to be to install the little shaft with the pointed end that we put an O-ring on earlier. Now, you know, I had this all together already because the camera stopped and I didn't know. But anyway, the O-ring doesn't have as much grease on it. It's basically what I'm getting at, because it's inside the unit now. So as I mentioned earlier, make sure you have your hole blown out. If you have a small enough drill bit, don't be afraid to just push it through. You know, you're not going to drill it. You're just going to use it to chip away any crust. Special thing to note on this, the hole here, when you go to put this spring on the shaft of this, the shaft is going to ride in that hole when it's assembled. Now there's clearance in here enough to where it isn't, you know, you can maybe see it moving. So it's not super tight tolerance. So what I'm getting at is when you put this thing together, you know, the spring goes in, shaft goes in, the shaft's not in the hole yet. So you got to watch that. Now we're going to put this in, line it up. The little pointy guy goes in the hole. And then you're going to start it a couple threads just by hand. You got to push down on this when you do it because you got the spring tension. Now what I do is I usually tighten them until they get a little snug. And of course for me now it's going right in. I didn't have to worry about it. Normally, maybe not normally, but sometimes when I was messing with this thing, taking it apart a few times, I had to take the pick and get in here and just nudge this thing. Maybe you loosen the cap a little bit and while I'm working it to get it to start, because the shaft was crooked just enough to where it caught the top. So you want to make sure not to do that, because if you try to force this thing down while your shaft isn't straight inside of that little hole, you're going to break something and you're going to have to buy a new one anyway. Should be able to run this down all the way till it almost looks manufactured by hand. Okay. Now the next thing I want to talk about with this is I don't know how tight this cap is supposed to be. I don't know necessarily if the company wants you rebuilding it. I did come across something of a rebuild kit part number, but I was unable to locate any of those. It says that they don't exist anymore. And I should have done this before I took this apart, but I you know, for a torque spec on a situation like this, normally maybe if I had thought about it, I might have taken a scribe and just scribed a line and then scribed in it, you know, a joining line right down the side of this thing. Anywhere, doesn't matter, just as long as you can see your line. What I'm getting at with that is, you know, since we don't know the torque spec and this thing can't really go too far in, scribing a line on it would have let you put the cap back where it originally was. I seriously doubt you're going to get another half a turn out of this thing, or, you know, whatever. So just having the line there, you know, like if it comes up and matches the line with when you're putting force on it with a wrench or a pair of channel locks or whatever, you know that you're going to be right about where it was. And like I said, for a torque spec, I don't know. I mean, something I have no clue about. These weren't rebuildable according to the Army and military and whoever else used them. They just changed them out. So there's no info on rebuilding this. This is just something that I decided to dive into. If you happen to know what the actual specification for torque on this is, I'd be, you know, glad to know. I guess there's some kind of spanner socket maybe you could buy that way you could put on a torque wrench, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I think if you just put this on and get it snug, you know, you should be good. So I'm going to snug this up in the vise, and then that'll be that. I'm not going to do that on camera though. Well, that's the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, it looks like little Cha-Cha here, she didn't really enjoy it, but she slept right through it, so that's all that matters. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it's helpful to everyone, you know, because like I said, some of these parts are just disappearing and there's not going to be anything left without doing some severe modifications. There was another shutterstat available, a different style that I found, a Kaizor brand. And they were regarded for a while as being the cheap replacement. You could get this Kaizor shutterstat and use a piece of pipe adapter, and it would work. It would screw in. But the problem is now, last time I looked at those, they, again, were like $300. So what's the real savings there? It's not, you know. But anyway, these kits will be available in our website. I will put a link in the description for you. I'm looking to sell these probably for around $25. I haven't really gotten to the bottom of that yet, but it's not going to be much more. It probably will be $25. And we have them in stock ready to go. So whenever you guys need to get a repair done, things don't sit around Big Mike's Motor Pool very long. They go out the door, and that's that. We don't let things hang unless there's a problem, but we'll usually contact you if there is. So, yeah, check it out, and make sure to visit www.bigmikesmotorpool.com for any of your military truck parts needs and any advice. We also always like to give advice out, whether email or phone. So give us a shout. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.